Good evening everybody, welcome back to the Omega Gaming channel. Today I'm going to be covering the Titanfall 2 Platinum review. Just basically talking about what I felt about the game, what I feel about the Platinum Trophy, like which trophies I enjoyed, which trophies I didn't enjoy, etc, etc. So, to give a general overview of this game's trophy list, there are 51 trophies that you have to collect. Now, 48 of these are offline thankfully and in the single player mode, and then there's 3 online multiplayer trophies. Now don't fret because the multiplayer trophies are actually very easy to get and I'll explain what they are a bit later. So let's just jump right into the trophy review. Now, just in case this is your first time here, I'm going to explain a few things what I normally do with these trophy reviews. So what I'll do is I'll spend a small section of the video talking about my likes and dislikes about the game, as well as just giving like a quick overview about the game itself. And then later on in the video I usually go into what I like to call the trophy highlights section, is when I highlight a few trophies that I either felt were difficult or tedious. That way I generally feel it just gives a better overview of what trophies to actually look out for on the list. So let's just jump right into what I thought about the game. Now, I actually think that the game is actually fantastic. Now, to be honest, there is actually a lot of things to like about this game. Considering the game came out in 2016, making it almost a 5-year-old game, it's actually quite staggering that this game holds up so well considering. The combat in the game itself is really smooth and the movement is really slick. Honestly, the controls and the movement for this game are actually better than most games I've played in the last year or so. And I think actually what's really stand out about this game is that the story isn't just this tacked on experience with like a multiplayer on top of it. Although the story isn't anything to write home about, this is actually more of a story of a bond between man and machine. I think the shining point of this game is BT, and that's the mech you actually travel around in. Whether that be the dialogue choices that the game gives you between you and BT, or whether it's just a cool moment like BT throwing you halfway across the map to land on another area. And I think that's what makes this trophy list so enjoyable. Like, at no point in the game do you ever feel like it's an actual grind. You do feel like you're having fun all the way through it, and before you know it, you've actually completed the story, because the story isn't actually super long. I think overall, from the average completion, you can probably get through the story in around 6 to 8 hours. And at no point in that story did I ever feel bored, or the gameplay was tedious, or what I was doing was tedious. They always added a new fun element on top of what you was doing at the current time. And I actually think what did surprise me is the addition of having it 60 FPS on consoles. Now bear in mind, while I'm doing this review, I did play it on the PS4 Pro, I didn't play it on the PS4 base model. But when I was playing on the Pro, it did run at a solid 60 FPS, which was actually a good bonus. And what was a nice addition to the console version that usually doesn't actually come to consoles, this is more of a PC thing, and that was a field of view slider. Because generally a lot of console games don't actually have a field of view slider, this is more for PC territory. So it definitely made the game more fun to play, being able to play on max field of view, as well as having 60 FPS was actually quite nice. So, with all that being said and done, let's just jump into the meat and potatoes of the game, and what you're all here for is the trophies. Now, 2 trophies that I want to get out the way straight away are for collecting the pilot helmets. And the reason that's the first trophy I actually want to mention, it's mainly because I don't really enjoy collectibles. I think for the most part in games they actually can be quite tedious. Like in my opinion, a lot of games do collectibles really awful. It just becomes a task of collecting tedious object after tedious object. And it's sad to say, but these collectibles are no exception to that rule. Luckily there isn't a great deal of helmets to collect, but I think that when you do collectibles in games, they should add some value to the game, whether that's telling you more about the game or the game world or the lore of the game itself. Like, I'm not really sure on how you guys deal with collectibles, but what I would normally do is that I would normally complete all of the difficult trophies first, and then usually in between go for like some of the miscellaneous trophies, and then I would usually make the collectibles like one of the last things to do. The reason why I would make it one of the last things to do is that way it puts me quite close to the platinum, so it would give me motivation. Another good thing to point out is that the miscellaneous trophies in this game are actually really easy to get, so there isn't really any like side trophy that takes too much time to obtain. So with all that being said, let's get into the trophy shoutout section of the game. So I'm going to highlight 3 specific trophies that I want to talk about in this section. The first trophy being the Annihilation Trophy, which is to kill 25 infantry in 2 seconds. Now, the reason why I mention this trophy isn't to do with difficulty, it's more to do with sometimes that the trophy is a little bit bugged out. There were times where I was fairly confident that I would have killed more than 25 in 2 seconds, quite comfortably, and I had to retry this section like several times over because it just didn't pop. And the irony is that when the trophy finally did pop for me, it was actually when I felt like I didn't fulfill the criteria quick enough. So I do feel like with this trophy there is actually a tiny bit of luck involved whether it pops or not at times. In truth, it was actually frustrating me even more so that I thought that the trophy was bugged out or glitched. And when it did pop and I finally achieved it, I was like, thank God for that. Now, the other 2 trophies that I'm actually going to talk about are actually difficulty related. The first trophy of the 2 difficulty related ones I'm going to be talking about is the trophy known as Legendary Pilot. This is for completing the game on Master difficulty. Now, depending on your skill at FPS games, this is going to be quite comfortable for you, or it's going to be a nightmare. Now, talking from my own perspective, I didn't find this too hard, as I'm really accustomed right now to difficulty related trophies when it comes to games. But I think the main skill in this game, it doesn't actually come from your aim, it actually comes from how good you are at moving around the map. And the reason I mention this is that you can actually cheese a lot of areas of the games just by jumping around the enemies. There's a lot of fights in the games that you don't even have to take. In my opinion, this is actually what makes Master not super difficult, or not as hard as you might think it would be. I was actually quite surprised just how many sections there are in the game where you don't actually have to deal with the enemy and you can either run around them or jump to a new area. This will become a very useful strategy, especially in the middle of the game. Even a lot of boss fights in the game for the most part aren't really difficult either. In terms of survivability or Master Mode, it's more about being mobile or either cheesing out one spot where nobody can hit you but you can hit them. And as for the Titan gameplay, this is about being more tactical rather than anything else. Whether that's putting yourself in advantageous positions on the map, or just standing next to the health a lot of the time. That way you're just going to reduce the risk of dying. Remember, this is about playing smarter and not harder. But with that being said, there are definitely sections in the game where you want to be aware of, because there are going to be places where you die over and over again, and honestly it's just more about throwing different strategies at them until one of them works. Like for instance, there are sections when you do play as a Titan where you can kind of cheese it and run by them, quite similar to how you can as the pilot, but then there are other sections where you need a bit more patience to get by it. It's just about recognising in situations which enemies you can run past and which enemies you have to deal with. Like, I feel overall that's what mainly this game comes down to. On top of that, like I mentioned earlier, the story isn't actually too long, so an average playthrough should be around 6 to 8 hours. And if you're a hardcore FPS player, I don't really think you're going to have too much trouble with this, whereas say if you're a casual player who only plays FPS occasionally, you probably will struggle with this a tiny bit. But remember, overall, it's just about using your movement and having good recognition of where spawn points are as well from the enemies. So before we talk about the last trophy on the list that I want to mention, I'm going to talk about the 3 multiplayer trophies that you have to earn. To get the multiplayer trophies, you basically have to win 1 multiplayer match, customise one of your loadouts, and join a network. Now these 3 multiplayer trophies can be done very quickly. I can happily say that it's going to take you less than an hour to achieve all 3 of these online trophies. The reason I say this is because creating a loadout is self-explanatory and you can unlock the ability to create a loadout pretty quickly, as well as joining a network is as easy as just pressing join network and then clicking on somebody's network. A lot of people themselves just have networks created just for the trophy. Now the last trophy for online is for winning a multiplayer match. But luckily I would say that the community for this game isn't totally dead online. There is actually a lot of players that play this game online to this day. So even if you're not that good at the game, eventually you just might get lucky and be on the winning team, so you will get that trophy. And now that brings us down to the last trophy that I want to talk about. This is the trophy that's well known amongst Titanfall 2 players, which is called Becomes the Master. This trophy requires you to run the gauntlet, which is basically the assault course at the beginning of the game. This trophy requires you to run the course in 33.65 seconds or less. Now the reason I call this the hardest trophy on the list is because when I was doing Master difficulty, there was no section in the game that I was truly stuck on for a long period of time. Whereas this trophy itself took me around 1 hour to achieve. I would definitely say for the average player playing this game that Becomes the Master is probably going to be the hardest trophy that they have to go for. Because the trophy itself requires you to be accurate, have good movement, and clock in a good time while you're at it. You have to also make sure that you're taking out all the dummy enemies as well, because if you miss one, that's going to add a time penalty at the end of the course. And any time that gets added on at the end basically voids your run. As for myself, I actually made Becomes the Master my last trophy that I needed to achieve for the Platinum, because I knew how good it would feel after unlocking this trophy and then the Platinum would pop afterwards. So the question is, do I think that this was a good Platinum to obtain, and should you get the Platinum yourself? To be honest, I would absolutely recommend this game to any trophy hunter, let alone any gamer. Honestly, not only was this game fun, but it was actually good. If you are looking at a solid FPS game to obtain a Platinum trophy on, I would highly recommend this game. And with all that being said and done, that pretty much wraps it up for another video. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and to leave a like on the videos, because that actually helps me recognise which videos you guys enjoy. I'm also really open to constructive criticism in the comments section, so if you guys feel that I need to improve on any area in the video, or you want to see something, please let me know, as it helps me just create better content for you guys overall. I also stream my trophy hunting on Twitch too, so if you guys just want to chat and hang out, you're more than welcome to come to the live stream, and I have left a link in the description just in case you want to check it out. So with that being said, I just want to thank you for watching the video. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next Platinum review. Until then, keep hunting guys.